My name is Sarah Newman. I am 37 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was just a regular high school English teacher from Portland, Oregon. I had a normal life, a small apartment, a rescue cat named Dante, weekend hikes in the Columbia River Gorge, and a love of classic literature. I was not particularly religious, but I used to go to church with my grandmother on occasion. I believed in something after death, but I never really thought about it. Everything changed on January 12th, when I died for 17 minutes. Everything I knew about life and death was shattered in an instant. What happened in those 17 minutes is not something I can ignore. It has had a profound and permanent impact on me. I have to tell you what happened because it is time-sensitive. Time is running out, and the importance of what I've learned cannot be overlooked. But before we begin, please tell me where you're listening. It will be nice to feel closer, even if we are physically separated. Furthermore, remember to like and comment on what you thought of this near-death experience testimony. Let's have a fair, open discussion here to learn from each other. Enjoy listening. It was a regular Tuesday. The school day had just ended, and I was organizing papers in my classroom as a snowstorm raged outside. I remember feeling a strange tightness in my chest, but I dismissed it as stress from midterms. As I walked to my car, the pain became more intense. By the time I got to the parking lot, I couldn't breathe. I remember falling into the snow, feeling the cold on my face and then nothing. Later, I discovered what had happened. A pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot that has traveled to my lungs. A colleague discovered me unconscious and called 911. By the time the ambulance arrived, my heart had stopped. The paramedics performed CPR and rushed me to the hospital, but I had been clinically dead for 17 minutes. Those 17 minutes challenged everything I thought I knew about life, death, and what comes after. What I experienced was not a hallucination or a dream. It was more real than anything I'd ever known. Now I must share my observations and insights with you, as the myths surrounding death are false. It's not the end. It is not a void. It's the start of a test, which most of us are completely unprepared for. When my heart stopped beating and my lungs stopped drawing breath, I didn't simply vanish. I didn't see a tunnel of light or my life flash before my eyes, as you do in other stories. Instead, the first thing I noticed was a strange sense of detachment, as if I had awoken from a dream, but with complete clarity. I could see paramedics frantically working on my body beneath me. I felt weightless, even peaceful as I floated above the scene. I was not scared, which surprised me. Instead, I experienced a profound sense of awareness, as if I were fully awake for the first time. Then it happened. A blindingly bright light appeared. It wasn't just bright. It was overwhelming and all-consuming. The glow wasn't just a light you saw. It was a light you felt, one that seemed to pervade every aspect of my consciousness. It was so powerful that I felt my entire being dissolve into it. Later, the angel would explain to me that the energy was the clear light of reality, as described in ancient texts. I remember being drawn to it and wanting to completely surrender to it, but something held me back. Fear, confusion, and attachment to my life and identity. I hesitated and everything changed. The light began to fade, and I sensed a presence beside me. That's when I met him, the being I can only describe as an angel, though he never referred to himself as such. He appeared to be a figure of pure light, neither male nor female, but I had the impression that he was inherently masculine. He introduced himself as Raziel, a spiritual guide for those in transition. His voice did not come from outside of me. Rather, it resonated clearly and gently within my consciousness. He explained to Sarah that she had crossed the threshold between life and death. What you just experienced was your first chance at liberation, the clear light of ultimate reality. Most souls do not recognize it. You saw it but turned away. I felt ashamed, as if I had failed a test I wasn't aware I was taking. Where am I now? I asked. Is this heaven? Raziel's light appeared to shimmer with what I can only describe as compassion. No, Sarah, this is not heaven as you know it. You are in the bardo, which the ancient Tibetans referred to as the intermediate state between death and rebirth. You're here because your time in your body is over, but your journey continues. Am I dead? Your physical body has stopped working, he replied. But, as you can see, your consciousness persists. Death is not the end, Sarah. It is a transition, a doorway. What happens next depends on your grasp of reality. Raziel's next statement profoundly affected me. He asserted that centuries have misled us about death. There is no judgment day, no soul weighing, and no divine being deciding whether we go to heaven or hell based on our actions. Instead, what happens after death follows a specific pattern, a 49-day journey through what he refers to as the Bardo afterlife underworld or BAU. Raziel said, "I am here to guide you through this realm and show you what happens to souls during these 49 days. Most people go through this journey unaware, trapped in self-created illusions. They fail the tests not because they are unworthy, but because they were not prepared. They don't realize what's going on. I had a feeling of confusion. But why do I see this? Why are you telling me this?" His light brightened. "This sensation is due to your impending return, Sarah. Your physical body is being revitalized as we speak. You are one of the select few who will see these truths and return to share them. What I show you in the coming moments will feel like hours in your consciousness, but in your world it will only be minutes." And so began my journey with Raziel through the realms of the afterlife, revealing secrets about death that had been hidden for over a millennium. Raziel explained that the BAU is not a physical location, but rather a state of consciousness in which the mind shapes reality. Time is different here, weeks can pass in seconds. He informed me that the soul's journey through this realm lasts exactly 49 days, with stages that test the soul's awareness and attachment. He explained that the first test was the clear light. The moment of death provides the greatest opportunity for liberation, allowing one to completely escape the cycle of rebirth. The radiant light you saw represented ultimate reality, pure consciousness with no form or limitation. Those who recognize it and merge with it can break free from the cycle for good. However, most people like you react negatively to it. I felt defensive. I wasn't sure what it was. Exactly, Raziel responded gently. That is the tragedy that repeats itself throughout one's lifetime. Souls do not understand what they are seeing because they have not prepared. They haven't developed the awareness necessary to recognize it in death. He went on to say that once the clear light fades, the soul enters the second stage of the BAU, a dreamlike state in which it is unaware it has died. It tries to communicate with loved ones and return to familiar places, but no one responds or sees it. Most souls spend days in a state of confusion, refusing to accept what has occurred. Can I see this? Raziel's light faded slightly. I can show you BAU members, but it may upset you. Suddenly, we were in what appeared to be a hospital room. A woman stood beside a bed with a body covered in a sheet. Family members gathered around, crying. The woman screamed and tried to tell them she was right there, but no one heard her. She reached out to touch her husband's shoulder, but her hand went straight through him. Raziel explained that she died 3 days ago. She doesn't understand why her family cannot see or hear her. She is unaware that she has died. The scene changed and we saw a man wandering around his empty house, perplexed by the strangers moving in with their furniture. He kept trying to explain that the building was his home, becoming increasingly agitated as they ignored him. He has been dead for more than a week, according to Raziel. His home has been sold, but he cannot accept it. He is trapped in denial. These scenes have broken my heart. Can't someone help them understand? That is the purpose of guides like me, Raziel explained. But not all souls are willing to listen. Many people are overly attached to their identity, possessions, and relationships. They can't let go. He explained that as time passes in the BAU, most souls become aware that something has changed. That is when the next phase begins, the emergence of visions. Raziel explained that peaceful visions come first. Beings of light appear, providing guidance and comfort. Some people see these as angels, while others see divine beings from their religious traditions. In reality, they reflect the soul's own higher consciousness. He showed me souls interacting with these radiant beings. Some people fell to their knees in worship. Others welcomed them as long-lost friends. The beings radiated unconditional love, providing a path to transcendence. Those who recognize these forms as extensions of their consciousness can merge with them and break free from the cycle, Raziel explained. But most people do not understand. They see them as separate external beings, and the opportunity is lost at that point. What happened next stunned me. Raziel demonstrated how, after about 2 weeks at the BAU, peaceful visions begin to shift. The radiant beings fade away, leaving behind what he refers to as wrathful visions, Terrifying entities that appear as demons, monsters, or fearsome deities with multiple heads and limbs, their faces twisted in rage. I witnessed souls fleeing in terror, screaming and begging for mercy. The scene was terrifying, but Raziel's voice remained calm. Sarah, these frightening entities are not real. They are expressions of the soul's fears, guilt, and unresolved emotions. They appear to be external threats, but they actually originate from within. The test is to recognize this truth, to realize that terror is self-created. What will happen to those who do not recognize this? They run, he said simply, and by running the illusions gain power. The fear fuels the visions, making them stronger and more terrifying. It creates a cycle that draws the soul deeper into the BAU. He showed me rare souls who, despite these wrathful visions, remained calm and aware. They looked directly at the terrifying entities and realized they were projections of their minds. As soon as they did, the entities vanished like mist in sunlight. This is the second test, Raziel explained. The first test is recognizing the clear light, which is a measure of awareness. The second step is to recognize the illusions of fear, which is a test of self-mastery. Most souls fail in both. Raziel explained to me that by the third or fourth week in the BAU, souls face their next major challenge, the life review. The process is more than just remembering what happened. It is reliving every moment, action, and thought, not only from their perspective but also from the perspectives of everyone they have affected. There is no judge, Raziel explained. There is no external force weighing your good and bad deeds. There is only one truth, the undeniable reality of who you are and what you did. He showed me souls during this process, some bathed in light as they relived acts of kindness and love, others writhing in agony as they felt the pain they had caused others. It was not punishment. Rather, it was the natural result of seeing the whole truth without the filter of ego or self-justification. Raziel went on to say that this life review does more than just reflect on the past. It shapes the future. The emotions and attachments that emerge during this review guide the soul to its next rebirth. Souls filled with regret, guilt, or desire are drawn back into life situations that match their vibrations. That sounds like karma, I said. He said it's karma, but not a punishment or reward system. It's a natural law similar to how a track functions. The location of the soul's rebirth is determined by its mental state. As the BAU journey neared its conclusion around the 6th week, Raziel showed me the final and most important test, which he dubbed the moment of choice. After enduring both peaceful and wrathful visions, souls have completed their life review and now find themselves at a crucial juncture. The BAU's illusions take on their most seductive form, with visions of comfort, loved ones calling, and familiar places that feel like home. These are glimpses into the next life, Raziel explained. The karmic forces have already started shaping the next incarnation. If the soul is drawn to these visions, reaching for them out of desire or comfort, it is instantly transported to a new body, a new life, and another turn of the wheel. I watched souls drawn to these visions, some eagerly, others hesitantly. When they connected with a vision, they vanished, being drawn into a new existence. Raziel explained that rebirth happens instantly. The process is automated. When the soul latches onto a desire or attachment, it is drawn into a new womb, a new reality, with no recollection of its journey through the BAU. And those who don't get drawn in? He showed me rare souls who, despite these enticing visions, remained detached and aware. They watched the visions appear and fade away without clinging to them. In that moment of perfect detachment, something miraculous occurred. The illusions dissipated, the karmic forces loosened their grip, and the souls expanded into radiant light, completing the cycle. The outcome is liberation, Raziel explained. It was not a place or a heaven, but rather an awakening to what has always existed, a consciousness that transcends illusion, duality, and suffering. I was overwhelmed by what I had seen. Why isn't everybody taught this? I asked. Why don't we know about the BAU in these tests? Raziel's light appeared to dim slightly. For over a millennium, these teachings remained hidden, reserved only for advanced spiritual practitioners. The Tibetan Book of the Dead contained this knowledge, but it was deemed too powerful and dangerous for ordinary minds. Dangerous? How could telling the truth be dangerous? Think, Sarah, he replied. What would happen if people realize there is no external judgment and the afterlife is simply a reflection of their mind? Religions that preach divine punishment, as well as governments that use intimidation to maintain power, would lose their hold. I realized he was correct. If people knew that they were the only ones judging them and that salvation came from within, their lives would change. Remember what Jesus himself said in the Gospel of Thomas, Raziel concluded. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and whoever knows himself will discover it. This truth has always been there, concealed from view. The reference surprised me. Are you quoting Jesus? Raziel simply replied, truth is truth. It appears in many traditions, albeit often disguised as metaphor and symbol. The Buddha taught the same principle, stating that everything we are is a result of our thoughts. Raziel went on to explain how modern science was beginning to confirm some of these ancient teachings. Near-death experiences like mine have consistently reported similar phenomena, such as clear light, life reviews, and encounters with beings of light. Even quantum physics proposed that consciousness could exist outside of the brain, operating beyond the constraints of time and space. So, why are people still in the dark? The system, he said, is intended to keep people distracted, focused on the material world, on fleeting pleasures and meaningless fears, and on pursuing status and validation. When death arrives, they are completely unprepared for what happens next. I felt a sense of responsibility growing within me. So what should everyone do? How can they prepare? Raziel's light became brighter. If death is a test, then life serves as the study guide. Detachment, the first step, is not about rejecting life but about not allowing it to control you. Understanding that nothing in the material world, including possessions, relationships, and identity, is permanent is the first step. The second step is awareness. The BU is a realm of illusions, as is life. Everything you see is filtered through conditioning, fears, and outside influences. If you do not learn to see through illusions now, you will be unable to do so after death. Ephesians 6 verse 12 states that our battles are not against human beings, but rather against principalities, powers, the rulers of darkness in this world, and spiritual wickedness in high places. The conflicts we face are primarily internal. The third step is acceptance. Death is not something to fear or avoid thinking about. It is the most decisive moment in life, when everything is revealed. Fear in the afterlife afflicts those who live in fear of death. Raziel then showed me souls in various stages of the BAU, demonstrating how the same patterns of awareness or unawareness that defined their lives persisted after death. He stated, those who live in ignorance die in ignorance. Fear controls those in life and continues to do so after death. Those who chase illusions in life continue to do so after their bodies die. The cycle is never ending, and the worst part is that souls perpetuate it. He showed me how souls trapped in the BU are constantly presented with opportunities for awakening, for seeing through the illusions, but the majority of them miss out because their mental habits are too deeply ingrained. It's similar to what Paul wrote in Romans 8 verse 6, Raziel said. The mind governed by flesh is death, whereas the mind governed by spirit is life and peace. Everything depends on your level of consciousness. I witnessed souls trapped in loops of fear, desire, and attachment, unconsciously creating their own suffering. The sight was heartbreaking, but Raziel remained compassionate. The cycle is not unbreakable, he assured me. These teachings exist for a reason, to help those who are ready wake up. The first step is to recognize reality for what it truly is. As he spoke, I saw dark, swirling forms in the distance. What are these? Raziel explained that collective thought takes various forms. Individual minds create personal illusions, while collective consciousness generates shared ones. The BAU embodies many people's fears, beliefs, and desires. Some souls are drawn to these collective illusions, which they both reinforce and are reinforced by. You mean mass belief systems? Exactly. Consider millions of souls, each expecting the same afterlife experience based on their religious upbringing. They create and maintain a shared illusion, drawing each other deeper into it. This is why mental independence is so important, the ability to see beyond collective programming. What Raziel showed me next was even more shocking. He explained how, throughout human history, certain groups have purposefully suppressed knowledge of the BAU and the nature of consciousness after death. He stated that the Tibetan Book of the Dead was only one of the texts that contained this wisdom. Similar teachings were present in ancient Egypt, early Gnostic Christianity, esoteric Jewish traditions, and indigenous shamanic practices worldwide. But these teachings were systematically ignored, labeled as heretical or dangerous. Why would someone do that? Control. Raziel responded simply. A population that fears divine punishment after death is easier to control than one that comprehends the true nature of consciousness. Religious institutions that position themselves as gatekeepers of salvation gain enormous power. Governments that support these institutions benefit from the control. He showed me historical scenes where people burned sacred texts, persecuted teachers of these hidden truths, and forced traditions underground. However, the core wisdom has survived, passed down through secret lineages, encoded in symbols and metaphors, waiting for humanity to be ready to receive it again. Now is the time, Raziel said. Human consciousness is evolving. More people are having similar experiences to yours, catching a glimpse of the truth and returning to share it. The barriers between worlds are thinning. He then delved deeper into the mechanics of the Bayou, describing how the 49-day journey unfolds day by day. The first week focuses on confronting the clear light and entering the Bardo state. The second and third weeks involve encountering both peaceful and wrathful visions. The fourth and fifth weeks concentrate on life review and karmic processing. The final 2 weeks focus on the pull toward rebirth and the final opportunity for liberation. Raziel explained that 49 days is not an arbitrary number. It's linked to fundamental energy cycles. The soul requires this time to process its previous incarnation and prepare for the next stage, whether it is rebirth or liberation. He showed me how various spiritual traditions had recognized aspects of this process, albeit in fragmented or symbolic forms. The Christian concept of the Egyptian journey through the duet, as well as Hindu beliefs about the soul's path after death, contained elements of truth that had been filtered through cultural and religious frameworks. The essence is the same, Raziel stated. Consciousness persists after physical death. It will be tested and challenged. The outcome is determined by the individual's mental state. As we explored the Bayou's later stages, I noticed souls approaching the moment of rebirth. Raziel explained how karmic patterns attract souls to specific life situations that match their mental and emotional vibrations. A soul filled with rage may be drawn to violent situations, he stated. A soul consumed by greed may find itself in a state of lack. But the consequence is not punishment, it is resonance. Similarities tend to attract each other until we learn the lesson. That sounds harsh, I replied, almost as if souls were being punished. Raziel responded, it only appears that way from a limited perspective. Each life provides the exact experiences required for the soul's evolution. What appears to be suffering may be the exact catalyst required for awakening. As Jesus said, what does it profit a man if he gains the world but loses his soul? Material circumstances are secondary to spiritual development. He showed me souls making decisions at the time of rebirth, some drawn to wealth and privilege, others to lives of apparent hardship. However, the higher purpose was not about comfort or suffering. It was about determining which conditions would best serve the soul's development. Raziel explained that some of the most evolved souls take on the most difficult lives. They recognize that struggle frequently accelerates growth. Comfort can result in complacency. As we watched the process, I noticed something strange. Threads of light connect souls and weave complex patterns across the Bayou. Raziel noticed my curiosity and explained that those are karmic connections. Souls that have interacted in previous lives frequently reconnect in subsequent ones. Relationships persist across incarnations with parents, children, lovers, and enemies all serving different roles to help each other learn and grow. The debts and gifts exchanged in one lifetime form bonds that bring souls back together. This explains a lot, including why we have instant connections with certain people and why some relationships feel charged with inexplicable emotion. We're continuing conversations and resolving long-standing tensions. Does this mean that everything is predetermined? I question whether our lives were simply playing out scripts written by past karma. No, Raziel replied. Karma creates tendencies and attractions, but free will is always present. Souls can respond differently, break patterns, and awaken in any given moment. That is why awareness is so important. It creates the possibility of change. As he spoke, I noticed countless souls passing through the Bayou on their way, some bright and aware, others dim and confused. What struck me the most was that no person was ever truly alone. Even those who appeared lost were being watched over by guides like Raziel, waiting for moments of vulnerability when wisdom could be imparted. Raziel explained that the universe is designed for awakening. Every experience, whether in life or after death, serves this purpose. Nothing is wasted and nothing occurs randomly. Even the most terrifying visions in the BU present opportunities for growth. He demonstrated how, when confronted with their deepest fears and wrathful visions, some souls discovered unexpected courage. When they faced their greatest fear, they discovered strengths they had never known they possessed. The most difficult aspects of the BAU frequently triggered the greatest transformations. Remember what the psalmist wrote, Raziel advised. Indeed, despite traversing through the shadow of death, I will remain unafraid of evil. That's not just poetry. It's sound advice for the Bardo journey. As our time together came to a close, Raziel began summarizing the most important lessons from the BAU. Death does not change you, he emphasized. It only reveals you. The same mind you cultivate in life persists after death. If you live with awareness, compassion, and attachment, they will guide you through the BAU. If you live in fear, attachment, or ignorance, these emotions will shape your afterlife experience. He explained that the ancient masters spent their lives preparing for death, not out of morbid fascination, but because they recognized that life and death are inextricably linked. Raziel explained that this is the key insight. The BU is more than just a place after death. It is a state of mind that exists today. The same illusions that deceive souls in the afterlife are active in everyday life. Breaking free isn't about waiting until death. It's about waking up at all times. This realization struck me deeply. The preparation for death was not an esoteric practice separate from daily life. Rather, it was living with full awareness, seeing through societal conditioning, questioning assumptions, and developing mental clarity. That's why meditation exists, Raziel explained. Raziel explained that meditation is not a religious ritual, but rather a form of mental training. It teaches you to recognize thoughts and emotions for what they are, rather than being controlled by them. This same skill is required in the BAU. He showed me how spiritual traditions around the world developed practices that, at their core, prepared people for the afterlife. He taught them to be mindful during transitions, to recognize mental projections, and to maintain calm in the face of fear or desire. Raziel explained that awakened life and successful death are the same. Both require seeing reality as it is, rather than as you wish or fear it might be. As my time with Raziel came to an end, I felt a strange pulling sensation, a call to my body. Panic rose within me. There was still so much I wanted to know and so many unanswered questions. Don't resist, Raziel said gently. Trust in the process. But how will I remember all of this? I inquired. How will I share what I've learned? The understanding is already within you, he said, his voice fading. It was always there. I've simply reminded you of something you already knew deep within your being. Trust that the right words will come when they are needed. The pull grew stronger. Raziel's form started to shimmer and dissolve. Remember, his voice appeared one last time, distant but clear. Death does not change you. It simply reveals you. Only the mind determines what happens next. And Sarah, you got this glimpse for a reason. Share it with courage. With those words, I felt myself fall backward, as if from a tremendous height. There was darkness, then pain, followed by the harsh fluorescent lights of a hospital room. I gasped, my lungs burning as they took in air. Medical personnel looked at me in shock. I had a near-death experience and emerged with centuries-old knowledge. 3 months have passed since my near-death experience, and doctors describe my recovery as miraculous. There is no long-term damage from oxygen deprivation or pulmonary embolism. Physically, I am completely healed, but everything else in my life has changed. I returned to teaching after 6 weeks, but my perspective had changed. I now wonder if anyone has taught my students how to prepare for the journey we will all take. I've started incorporating subtle lessons about mindfulness and awareness into my English classes, teaching students not only how to analyze texts, but also how to question their thoughts and beliefs. Some nights I wake up haunted by images from the BU. Souls fleeing their projections, radiant beings offering liberation, and the intricate web of karmic connections. I write everything down, filling journal after journal with my memories. Some people think I'm crazy, others are intrigued but skeptical, and a few see the truth in what I'm saying. I don't blame the doubters. Prior to my experience, I would have been one of them. However, I am aware of what I witnessed, and I understand why they sent me back to share my experience with others. My relationships have changed as well. I am more patient, compassionate, and direct. I no longer fear conflict or judgment because I understand that they are only temporary manifestations of the mind. Some friends have pulled away, while others have drawn closer, sensing something genuine in my transformation. I've begun studying the Tibetan Book of the Dead and comparing my experiences to its ancient wisdom. The parallels are striking, although my understanding lacks Tibetan Buddhism's cultural framework. I've also looked into near-death experiences from other traditions and discovered similarities that cross cultural boundaries. The most profound shift has occurred in my perception of death. I no longer fear it. I see it as a transition, not an end, a planned path, not a mystery. The change doesn't mean I want to die, but the fear of death has subsided. I still have some questions, of course. Occasionally I wonder if I imagined everything. But then I recall details that I couldn't have imagined, concepts confirmed in esoteric texts, and accounts from other near-death experiencers. Has the experience made me more religious? No, but it has helped me become more spiritual. I now realize that religious traditions contain fragments of truth about the afterlife, albeit often hidden beneath layers of dogma. What matters is awareness, the ability to see reality clearly and recognize illusions. I'm not special. My experience hasn't made me enlightened. It was only a preview of what lies ahead for all of us. The real work begins now, as I live each day and prepare my mind for the journey ahead. If you're reading this, know that you too will face the BAU's tests. However, you can start preparing now by becoming more aware, compassionate, and mindful. Death is not the end, but rather a transition, and the mind holds the key to what comes next.